Okay.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening. I'd like to call this Tuesday, June 18, 2019, meeting of Middletown City Council to order. Please stand and join me in a moment of meditation and the pledge of allegiance to the flag. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mrs. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vittori.
Here.
Mr. Bohannon.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Mulligan.
Here.
Mayor Mulligan.
Here. All right, our first order of business is a public hearing this evening regarding our 2020 tax budget. Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor. The Ohio Revised Code requires the city each year to prepare and submit a tax budget for the next calendar year. We are at that time of the year now to do the 2020 budget. Under our schedule on June 18th, you'll have the public hearing, receive and file by motion. We will deliver it on July 15th to the Butler and Warren County auditors. The annual tax budget has two purposes. It gives the beginning and projected revenues for each fund for 2020. They help use that then to prepare the county budget. It also justifies the need for the property tax levies that are in place in the city. We have made the following assumptions in preparing the revenues and expenditures for this budget. Revenues in all funds agree with the most recent financial plan. General fund revenues projected for 2020 are projected with a 2% decrease, and expenditures are projected with a 3% increase. All 2020 operational costs agree with the most recent financial plan. Debt service costs are actual levels based upon the debt repayment requirements already set. And these estimates are based on the current knowledge of the revenue streams and the current expenditures. We do expect the expenditures will exceed revenues by approximately $2.1 million in 2020. A lot of that will be saving the money we've been saving for the last couple of years, getting ready for the bridge over University. So this is a planned deficit to cover. There are no grants for that bridge, which means we're writing a check for cash to cover that. We do anticipate still having more than a 15% reserve at the end of the year. You will, at some point down the road, get a permanent appropriation resolution later in the year to adopt whatever the final budget is. This is just for planning purposes for the county.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Mr. Atkins, from council? Okay, thank you. With that, I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone to speak in favor of the proposed 2020 tax budget for the city of Middletown. Anyone to speak in favor of? Anyone to speak in opposition to the proposed tax budget? All right, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move on with city manager reports.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I want to thank council publicly again for taking the time to spend 3 hours running around looking at our fire stations tonight. As I stated on the bus tour, we started this process about 3 or 4 years ago when I tasked the chief and assistant chief with starting to look at our stations and our operations given our budget levels as to how we could start modernizing the fire department in a way that was sustainable within our budgets. And so they started with a strategic plan a few years back, followed that up with manpower and station requirements and station locations with the idea that we now have a pretty solid idea of where our stations should be located within the city that will allow us to best respond for the city's needs into the future as best we know them. It tells us what equipment should be at those stations, how many manpower people should be at those stations, and what that does now is it allows us to start thinking as we look at our 50 and 60-year-old stations, planning for the next 5 to 10 years on how we might look at starting to replace them, where they would go, where the land would be, and how we would design them to modern specifications. So this was kind of a context tour for council to see where we are. And then the last station was a brand new station in Fairfield Township to show what a modern station looks like compared to what we are operating out of. Again, it gives us kind of both ends of the bookend, and as we move forward, we'll be looking at bringing you different pieces of this to start continuing the process as to where the land would be, how we might get it, creative financing ways to do it, and then look at how we would stage those new stations over however many years it takes for the finances to make it work. So I do appreciate, I took 3 hours of your time. I'm very grateful for you letting us take you around and show you what we have. And with that, I will invite Mary up from the Middletown Visitors Bureau and let them give their update.
Good evening, Ms. Huttinger. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, is this on? Okay, perfect. Is this perfect?
You want to let me know when you want to change and I'll move for it.
Okay, next slide. There goes the warm-up. Okay, Mayor Mulligan, members of City Council, City Manager Atkins, thank you for inviting the Middletown Visitors Bureau to provide an update on our organizational annual strategic goals. Before we get started, I would like to thank Shelby Quinlivan, Jennifer Eakey, and Amy Vittori for their service as liaisons to the organization and their guidance to myself and to our board of directors. Their continued support, feedback, and encouragement has helped us stay the course this past year. I'd also like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our current board of directors, Elizabeth Hanavan, our board president, Mika Glacier-Jones, our secretary, Lindsay Pittman, our new treasurer, Rick Pierce, Deanna Shores, Stefan Wanamaker, and Heather Mason, who serve as members at large. Without these individuals, this organization would not have the energy, passion, creativity, and dedication that has carried us to where we are today. Next slide, please. Since I last addressed City Council a year ago, we have been busy establishing a solid organizational infrastructure that would allow us to spend more of our time focusing on fulfilling our mission of promoting and telling the vibrant story of Middletown instead of dealing with cumbersome administrative tasks and compliance requirements. I am pleased to report that a year later, we have a fully operational board of directors, a budget and budget process that has withstood not only its first-year startup costs, but full operational costs, a clean bill of health from the state auditor's office, full compliance at the local, state, and federal level, transparent operations that hold us accountable, and internal processes and policies that will hopefully ensure smooth business continuity for years to come. Next slide, please. So in addition to building our operational infrastructure this past year, we have laid the groundwork for positioning the Middletown Visitors Bureau to be a keystone organization representative of a small market destination location. To us, this means ongoing strategic planning and innovation, seeking out and developing key partnerships, fine-tuning our communications with science-based data, aggressively pursuing opportunities to close the current tourism gaps, and executing a traditional marketing plan. Next slide, please. So 2019 has gotten off to a great start. We now have a brochure, print ads, TV and radio commercials, plenty of stock pictures and video, a fully functional website, a flourishing social media presence, engaged followers, and some pop-up opportunities like the Make It in Middletown Run video and the Cavs training camp partnership. Both of these increased our followers, engagement, and the collection of emails, which are key to continued communication. Our brand is proving to be one that resonates with people and is flexible enough to tell our story while remaining fresh, exciting, and appealing. And while we may have a good solid foundation this past year and a half, there is still so much more potential and low-hanging fruit for us to take advantage of. Next slide, please. As part of our execution strategy, we have crafted a scope of traditional media channels that contribute to our touch potential. Keep in mind that the old marketing adage requires that a person hear or see a marketing message at least a minimum of 5 to 7 times before it resonates with them and takes action. For our purposes, we have hit all forms of media. This means print, social media, TV, radio, and in-person events to increase our reach or our touch to potential visitors. Next slide, please. One of our consistent drumbeats is creative positioning. So how do we position Middletown to stand apart from our peers? How do we establish ourselves as a preferred destination? Sometimes this simply means keeping up with the Joneses. Other times it means actually beating the Joneses. So for example, for us, keeping up with the Joneses in our case would mean making sure that our bike path is connected on the north and south parts of the bike trail. Actually beating the Joneses would mean having a canoe livery or campground along the bike trail so that visitors of this connected 99-mile stretch of bike trail can stop and stay overnight and utilize the area for more than one visit. Next. Part of our strategy includes building meaningful connections and leveraging those relationships. For example, our partnership with the Great Miami Riverway Coalition has shown to us that not only is it beneficial to be included in their regional efforts to maximize our national exposure, but it positions us in a way to learn and benefit from our neighbors who have been actively promoting their communities for a much longer period of time than we have. This relationship is reaping dividends on so many levels and continues to push us as a Visitors Bureau and community to be and stay relevant in this industry. Next slide, please. It's no secret social media is where the revitalized Visitors Bureau first started our efforts last year. This past year, Annie and I have fine-tuned our strategy so that our messaging is better targeted to our primary target groups, and we've capitalized on many learnings. If you calculate paid ads and our reach, we pay less than a penny for each touch via social media. This is due to better targeting and return on investment on our paid ads. We have a better idea of who our people are, who we want to try and touch. And over 54% of our audience falls within the family range compared to a static 44% prior to 2019. We continue to see steady growth and encouragement from our fans and adjust our methodologies accordingly to keep things fresh, engaging, and worthy of viral traction. As we know, anything viral on social media means a home run. Next slide, please. So as a Visitors Bureau, events often present to us an opportunity to increase our effectiveness and impact because we get to hear and experience real-time what people are thinking about Middletown. These are often a critical opportunity for us to help reframe people's perceptions about Middletown and our community. Oftentimes, it's a simple brochure and a smiling face that triggers a discussion about the revitalization efforts in Middletown and the number of unique attractions for families to see and experience here. We plan to continue these outreach and visibility efforts in addition to identifying new in-person opportunities for the upcoming year. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, the Great Miami Riverway Coalition Partnership, along with the city, has been extremely beneficial. Elizabeth Connor, the executive director, and Shelby Quinlivan of the city manager's office have both played an integral part in making sure that Middletown not only has a seat at the table, but access to the many opportunities that this coalition makes available to its members. In fact, many of these opportunities are available to people who are just willing to show up. For example, we partnered with the coalition to have a presence at the Ohio Tourism Day this year in Columbus. We are mimicking literally the Tour de Way Passport Challenge and kicking off a mini challenge in Middletown to drive traffic to our businesses. And we are partnering with the coalition, with the city, and the YMCA to create a Riverway Youth Day to introduce Middletown kids to the river and all of the amazing aspects of this water trail and the nature around it. Next slide, please. So when we get down to the performance and effectiveness of the Visitors Bureau, the most simplistic and traditional measure really is, are our hotels full? And so for the most part, they are. So how then do we know that we're moving the needle on engagement and appealing to potential visitors? One way is to establish some basic marketing baselines. And in this case, we have created some first-year baselines to use to measure the effectiveness of our messaging campaigns to external audiences. As I've mentioned before, touches are important in marketing, so my goal is to create as many touches as possible for potential visitors and our target demographic group. As a reminder, our sweet spot for our target demographic group is individuals within a 1 to 4 hour drive time away from Middletown. So in 2019 thus far, we've created over 43 million opportunities for our target market to be touched. That's quite a significant improvement over last year. On the slide, you can see an idea of the touches for different channels. And at first glance, you may say, well, why not put all of your money in radio for the return on investment that you get? But we have to take into account that visual ads are very motivational and cause people to take action. People spend a lot of time on social media, so of course we have to be there. And we still want to cater to the baby boomers who prefer print. And we also need to recognize that influencers are quickly gaining market channel share with credibility and influence. So as a result, we will continue to fiddle with our market mix as our messaging evolves. And I just want to point out that we had our first influencer family this weekend, and the initial results and feedback are overwhelmingly positive. And I'll be submitting a report to all the participants and businesses who contributed within the next week or two. Next slide, please. So we may be halfway through 2019, but we still have a lot planned that is new and exciting. We are starting familiarization tours, also known as FAM tours, industry speak, where we bring hotel staff on a personalized tour of Middletown so they can see firsthand all the revitalization that's going on in our community. We give them an opportunity to shop at our locally owned stores and eat at our independent, family-owned restaurants. We partnered recently with Spoken Bicycles to help them launch their bike rental program. This we consider a critical component to being a successful riverway and bike trail community. This would be an example of us keeping up with the Joneses. We will soon be hosting a group of beer bloggers during the Hops in the Hangar event in August, giving them a special tour experience of Middletown as well, giving them an opportunity to learn a little bit about our history, shop in our stores, and eat at some of our local restaurants. And we will be rolling out 2 curated walking tours that are available on Google Maps that visitors can follow along on their smart devices, read our custom stories, and view hand-picked photos that all tell a story about Middletown and who we are. And last but not least, we'll be making sure that Middletown is ready to take advantage of the opening of Spooky Nook in Hamilton, which will have a 30-mile radius economic impact. We can't miss out on this opportunity. Next slide, please. I would be remiss if I don't use this opportunity to share with you our wish list. What will help us keep up with the Joneses, or in my preference, beat the Joneses, to make us a competitive tourist destination? I believe that it's necessary that we have a livery of some sort, whether it's a physical building or some type of just entryway, exitway on the Great Miami Riverway so that canoers, kayakers can actually unload or offload off of the river. We have found that in other communities that have this presence, they see an uptick on visitors and overnight stays in their communities. We have positioned ourselves as a riverway community, yet our only utilization of the river to date is our actual proximity to it, the new Riverway Center and the bike trail. So having a livery in some capacity would help us actually beat the Joneses and stay ahead of the pack. And of course, a downtown hotel would provide tremendous opportunity for the Visitors Bureau to pitch small meetings and conventions, think roughly 150 to 300 people. While the Cornerstone Manor and Indigo Pass, which are new lodging facilities in the downtown area, are an amazing start, I fear that they'll be booked and we won't be able to meet the capacity of new visitors, especially with Spooky Nook coming in. So this in and of itself presents an additional opportunity to seize on this regional investment. So at this point in time, I'd like to mention that the Visitors Bureau is in a really good space. People are excited and positive. There's plenty of opportunity still, and we are positioned to enjoy an upward trajectory for the remaining part of this year and into next. And of course, thank you to City Council for your continued support of the Visitors Bureau and all that we do. We can take any questions at this time.
All right. Any questions from council? Yeah, certainly appreciate the update and the great work you're doing.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you
you
very much.
Your Honor, I'd just follow that up by saying, I don't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago that we made some significant changes in the Visitors Bureau. I don't know how we could have come up with a better place from where we were to where we are now. Beautiful job with the board, with Mary. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. So I want to make sure they hear that. It's light years ahead of where we were, and I appreciate it. Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, very good. That brings us to our consent agenda. Ms. Gank?
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the City Council minutes from May 18th, 2019, to receive and file an oath of office for Jordan Pergram, to receive and file Board and Commission minutes from the Park Board April 8th and May 13th, 2019, from the Civil Service Commission of April 18th, 2019. To confirm the following personnel appointments: Lisa McHenry to the position of part-time bus driver in the Department of Administrative Services, Division of Transit, and Elena Garris to the position of Economic Development Program Manager in the Economic Development Department.
Okay, do we have the motion to approve the issues and actions listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Okay, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
All right, we have one motion item to receive, file, and adopt the 2020 tax budget for the city of Middletown. A motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second. This is the subject of our public hearing this evening, and we have our staff report. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That brings us to our council comments. Start this evening with Mr. Mulligan.
Yes, first, thank you to Ms. Hutlinger and the board of the Visitors Bureau. It was a great update. I know that through the work that they've been doing in our own public relations office here at the city, there's so much more positive feedback that I'm hearing from people outside Middletown and in Butler and Warren County. And I think the good message is getting out about our city's revitalization. And then second, thank you to Chief Lawley, Chief Snively, and Chief Thompson from Fairfield Township for their time and the effort that they put into their report. It will help inform staff and city council as we look at the capital needs for our firefighter staff. And it really was a good firsthand look for me, very informative. And just knowing what we have in front of us, there's plenty of work to do in the capital needs budget for the firefighters. So thank you for that report.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bohannon?
Nothing this evening, sir.
All right, Ms. Vittori?
I would like to thank the city manager for taking on the task of getting the Visitors Bureau back in the saddle, because I know that he really got us started, and I'm grateful to have been a part and to get us into such a different place than we were. It really is night and day, and I'm thrilled with all their hard work. And
Fun to see.
it is. It's really exciting. So I'm proud of everyone that was involved in all of that and continues to be. I'd also like to encourage people to go to the bash tomorrow. Hopefully the rain will hold out enough that you can just have an umbrella. We also have Pride Fest on Friday downtown. There's going to be a lot of fun things, from a bike parade to all kinds of music and dancing and all kinds of fun. So I encourage people to come down this weekend, and I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moon?
Nothing this evening.
All right, just to reiterate those comments, certainly great to get a firsthand look at our fire department and understand what's going on. Appreciate all the work that went into getting that organized. Field trips are always good to see it firsthand. I can remember my first tour with Chief Botts and seeing some of his fire stations firsthand, and again, comparing to what's out there today, it is important that we take a look at that. And looking forward to some of the great events coming up downtown, the Bash and the Pride Festival. It's going to be a good time. We'll mention the Multicultural Festival is scheduled for this Saturday. We got word that due to the expected rain we've had, and rain we continue to have, it seems like, they're going to postpone it until July 27th. So for folks that are watching and we're planning on going to that, hopefully we'll have a little better weather and chance in July. And with that, we can move to our legislation this evening. Ms. Cohen?
Thank you, sir. We do have two matters asking to be considered as emergency this evening, so I see if there's a motion to waive charter requirements regarding 2 readings and 30 days to enactment for Ordinance O 2019-37 and Ordinance O 2019-38.
I move that the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days be suspended, and the ordinances and resolutions previously read be declared an emergency measure and read one time only.
Okay.
Second?
Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vittori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
The first matter will be Ordinance O 2019-37, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an amendment to a contract with National Water Services, LLC, for additional well screen and declaring an emergency.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt.
Second?
Okay, we had a presentation on this last meeting. Anything to add, Mr. Atkins?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vittori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
The next matter is Ordinance O 2019-38, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Brainwave Connections Incorporated for Phase 2 of the Oakland Revitalization Incentive District and declaring an emergency.
Okay, motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we had a presentation on this last time as well. Mr. Atkins, any other updates or comments?
No, well, just briefly, Your Honor, it has really nothing to do with the legislation, but we received a request that came also through council that the state is looking at putting some money together potentially as part of the next budget for land bank use for commercial and industrial properties in the state of Ohio. We have been asked to present, and I will be going to Columbus tomorrow to presenting at the State House. And I'm going to use this project and the paperboard as a actual living example of how that money could be put to use quickly and efficiently to enhance other projects, not only to help with the industrial project, but also to enhance revitalization of the work they've already done in the residential field with that money, with the houses that we've taken down and now the revitalization of that neighborhood. So this all fits together.
Good, very good. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Item number 3 is ordinance O 2019-39, an ordinance amending the pay and benefit ordinance, ordinance number O 2018-81, and ordinance number O 2018-82, and declaring an emergency. No action requested until July 2nd.
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor. Those of you who were around during the recession recall that there was a time when we were at 0% pay increases for several years. And as the recession ended and revenue started to slowly increase, we had some concern as a council and staff that it might be a blip in the radar, that the recession might not be over. And so part of that, we put together a program at that point called performance-based compensation. And it wasn't merit pay for the employees. It was based on the performance of the city as a whole in revenues. And the concept behind that program was that if the city did better than we had expected, we would take some portion of that and give it on to our employees who had gone so many years without a pay increase. And we did that, as I remember, for 2 or 3 years, and then we got locked into where, yeah, the recession is really over, and we went back to more normal raises. As part of the budget for this year, we knew that NTE was finishing the construction on the $600 million power plant. We knew that the schools were finishing construction on $90 million in renovations at the high school and the construction of the new middle school. We knew Kettering was done with their project, and so we actually budgeted that our tax base would go up a little bit, but that our overall revenues would go down based on a loss of all that construction revenue, which is one time while the construction is going on, and then of course they pull out of town and go on to their next project, and that money goes away. It's not ongoing for us. What we have found so far through June is that is not what happened. We forecasted a decrease, and we are actually showing a small increase over last year, which gives us a pretty nice swing in what we thought we were going to do. All good news. And so I had approached council before and asked, when you look at the raises throughout the organization, we've talked before that we often run with fewer employees than similar cities around us in Kettering and Springfield and Hamilton. And we're also running on a 2% raise. And as we're looking at comps in the area and working on our union contracts, it's bumping up to 3 and 4 in many locations now. And so I approached council a little while back and asked, could we, since the city is doing better, could we give a performance-based compensation payment this year to our employees? And that would be $500 for full-time employees, $250 for our part-time employees. And again, the concept would be it's a one-time payment. If we don't do this well next year, this doesn't flow through like a raise. But council said they, at least in my initial discussions, that they would consider it. The first ordinance in front of you modifies the pay and benefits ordinances for the different pay structures in the organization. Your number 4, which is Resolution R 2019-20, is actually the supplemental appropriation that would allow us to make that payment, and those are up for your consideration at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Okay, Ms. Cohen?
Last matter, as we indicated, related, Resolution R 2019-20, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2019, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from council? Okay, with that, we'll be in recess until July 2nd, 2019 in these chambers. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.